everybody. Welcome back to another fabulous interview with inspired Jewish women. And today, I get so excited. This is like the highlight of my day. I rush home from carpool to put on my Zoom and meet these incredible women. And Stephanie, when was the last time we saw each other face to face, like in the flesh?
And a year ago,
a
year ago in February, when you took me out to Portland.
Oh, that was amazing.
That was amazing.
Oh my gosh.
And it was sunny in the winter in Portland.
We have days like that. This is Stephanie Pollak, everyone. Say hi to my dear, dear friend.
Hi, everyone.
Wow, we go way back to, I don't know, a decade and a half, maybe more.
Well, how old is your Shimshi?
Shimshi is 16.
Oh, no, not Shimshi. Your Yossi.
Yossi's 13. So I remember
13 years ago.
Helping me with him when he was a new baby. And yes, I was a dorm mother working in a school, a seminary in Har Nof in Jerusalem. And Stephanie was one of my prized pupils. Just my, we call it like a bat bayit, like a house daughter. I don't know how to describe that in English, but Stephanie was that girl.
And you've always been my aim bayit, my house mother, since meeting you that year.
That was amazing.
I've taken so much from you that it's just been in my life ever since.
Oh, I love you so much. The truth is, you love all your students, but some of them just find this place. They lodge themselves into your heart, into your kishkas,
and then you just want to stay connected, and we always have been. That's it.
Oh, well,
and thank God for social media and technology.
Yes, amazing. Yeah, it's a very humbling experience. I'll tell you, when you're a teacher or when you're a mentor, and all of a sudden your student or your mentee becomes your teacher. So that is what happened over here, because I thought I was giving something of content. This is how you be a Jewish wife, a Jewish woman, and then through the years, through the challenges and through life, you have just always taught me what it really, really means to have faith, to be strong, to be a Jewish woman. And I'm so grateful for this friendship, this relationship that keeps giving. So I'm just going to introduce you. Short introduction to Stephanie. There's so much to say about you, but Stephanie is a powerhouse, and she's a voice for Jewish women around the world. You have touched thousands through your interviews on podcasts, through your mic drop that went viral, and just how you touch audiences with your authenticity, your vulnerability, sharing of yourself and your struggles so that you could help other people. And I've learned so much from you as someone that has been a single mom for so many years and has raised this incredible son, David, who is 9 years old now. How you have overcome your grief, your struggles with faith leading your way. So I'd like to talk about that today. And we have an incredible audience of women that join and listen in every time we have women coming on to this platform. And I know that they will hear what they need to hear and see what they need to see and connect to your story in a way that will really, really resonate deeply with them.
I'm game.
Okay, so let's give us a little bit of background. The last decade plus, more than that. I mean, let's go back to newlywed Stephanie, living the dream, bliss, and having your whole world coming crashing down on you.
Right. So I had gotten married for the first time in 2010 to my high school sweetheart. We started dating when we were 15, 16 years old. And there were red flags while we were dating all those years. I was a very naive girl. And I also just, I thought that, I guess I just didn't know the extent of it all. And I didn't understand the depths of what these red flags really indicated full picture. Fast forward to 2010, we got married, and we relocated both together. I did not want to live in the tri-state area. We were both from the New York area, and I wanted to leave the cold, and he wanted to leave, I guess, the influences around him. And we both wanted to go someplace warm. We relocated down to Hollywood, Florida, where I lived for almost 10 years. And shortly after getting married, there were a lot of behavioral changes and attitude changes. And on top of that, surprise, I got pregnant, which that wasn't part of our plan. My son, David, is the biggest bracha in my life. He is full of blessing and joy and groundedness in his own. And if anyone gets to meet him, they see where I get it from. I get it from him. He's always kept me grounded along the way. And basically, 7 months into marriage, I'm 21 years old. I find out that I'm pregnant, and all the changes of behaviors and actions and attitudes, everything we're just louder. We're just more present. And again, I didn't know. What ended up happening to me was that I ended up becoming more and more alone and isolated, feeling empty. I was also kind of just like waiting for this. I was scared for this baby to come because I was so alone, but at the same time, I was waiting for this baby to come because I needed to have more of a purpose in my life, just like needed to do something else for something else and for someone else, and just needed to be doing. So like the ticking clock of this pregnancy just couldn't come any faster, at the end of it. But also during the pregnancy, I was about 8 months pregnant, where my late husband just confronted me. Things were, I didn't realize how bad things were. And he confronted me and he said that he owned up to it, that he had a problem and he needs to go away for 10 days. And when he comes back, everything will be fixed. And he called, he was on the phone call, and I'm like, do what you got to do. I'm your wife. I love you. I support you. I'm always going to be here for you because that's my job. That's my duty as a wife. And I was overhearing the conversation from the other room, and I hear him talking about opiates and painkillers, and all of a sudden I start Googling what he's talking. And again, I'm this naive girl. I wasn't raised so sheltered, but I didn't know, I never heard of these words before. And I hear him talking about, needing to go and detox for these drugs that he was addicted to.
So Stephanie, when you heard that at this point in your marriage, and you've been together with Mati for years already, did it come as a shock to you? Did you know it even like deep down that something was so off?
There were definitely times where I did not listen to my gut. I absolutely did not listen to my gut. It's kind of hard when you're pregnant. You can't always differentiate those feelings and sensations also. Yeah. I don't think I was hormonal. I think I was too numb and too isolated to even tap into feeling so alone throughout so much of my pregnancy and the beginning of my marriage. Like I say in my mic drop, I really started to rely on the nanny. Nanny Fine from the show became my, and Friends, those two shows, and the Ellen DeGeneres show. Anything that can bring me laughter and joy and happiness for a temporary moment, I DVR'd every episode just to keep me focused elsewhere. And at least it was positive. At least it was good. And then once I turned that TV off, it's like, and sometimes I saved up my DVRs for a moment where like I knew I was going to be abandoned because of the drugs. It wasn't him, it was the drugs, it was the disease. Like he had a heart of gold and he was an amazing man. He was sick and he struggled with this disease for years. I just didn't know the extent of it when we got married, because there were times where we were broken up because my gut was telling me to break up, and I listened to my gut, but then I got back in because I wanted something so bad. I also was that fixer. I was always that fixer, that people pleaser. Those were like the core of who I was. That was my identity. And that's where I felt needed, so especially now I'm in this role as a wife, this is amazing, but
Mm.
I'm thinking I can do this role, but he's not present.
Right. You
So
can't
that's
do
why I was
one.
also,
It
what?
takes two. It takes two.
Right. So that's why, but I was also itching for this pregnancy to come to an end because, like I can go into that, like that nurture mode, but for the sake of my own pleasure of like being needed. There wasn't more of just like, because this is coming from the place where it was coming from was not matching up,
Mm.
you know?
Wow.
So so yeah, that towards the end of the pregnancy, I became aware of his addiction, and I got like 2 months left to this pregnancy, and he so badly wanted to stop what he was doing. He always tried to find the easy way. Okay, I'm only going to go to detox for 10 days and I'll be fixed.
Mm.
Came back after 10 days. Eventually he relapsed, and which I talk about on the mic drop, in my 9th month of pregnancy, and what went crashing down over there. And, and there was this, it was painful. It was painful. And then and then I became so consumed by it. And then eventually, like, I couldn't even give my child the proper attention even before he was born, because I was too consumed by his actions and what he was doing and checking the bank account. And like, all of a sudden I'm like Inspector Gadget over here, or Sherlock Holmes. And this became a full-time job that I gave myself. It wasn't like, like this is what I need to do. But when he came out of detox the first time, he's like, Steph, if you notice me doing this, and if you notice that, and whatever it is, like he wanted me to be the police.
Be on top of
So I
it.
was like, okay, fine, I can do that also, like I can.
Became like the mashgiach, like the mashgiach.
Yeah.
That's a Hebrew word for, how do you translate that word? It's like
Um,
person in the yeshiva that watches over the boys, like will
right.
call you out. And it's a very dangerous position
Oh,
to take on as a wife. We're not meant to be the mother or the
yeah,
mashgiach,
no,
right? There needs to be this healthy balance. But the problem in your situation was it wasn't a healthy situation.
no.
So
And
where
all it led me to was to criticism, and I wasn't, there was no compassion, there was no comfort, there was no respect. I didn't have any respect, and I lost so much respect for him because all I was focusing on was, like, give me your wallet at the end of it. I became so controlling, and it's not my nature to do any of that.
hmm,
And so I was even further removed from who I am and what I want. Like, I didn't exist. My being didn't exist. Stephanie, I didn't know who Stephanie was at that point. And it took me a long time to like, and I'm still figuring out Stephanie, just like you're still figuring out Eve. Like that journey never ends. But like what my core, what my soul, what my job is, what my tafkid is in life right now, I only figured that out only a couple of years ago. And it took everything I experienced in my previous marriage to get there, you know?
wow.
And there was a lot of trauma that was there that I've worked through, and that I'm continuously working through because it comes up in different forms and at different times.
Yeah.
So
Well, I'm gonna link the mic drop in the show notes over here so that everyone can hear the full story. But
right.
I'd like to fast forward a little bit because you went through terrible loss. You lost your husband
Right.
as a young bride. You went through all of that. And then there was like the part where you picked the pieces of your life up and built this beautiful new you. And I think of you from when I knew you back then, and I look at you now and I see the same root, the same goodness, because you've always been this beautiful neshamala, but you are a different person, Stephanie. I say this with so much like I'm getting choked up over here. Like you have grown tremendously. You
Sure,
have
the lighting here on my end is so bad that like you can't
okay.
even see how blushing and how uncomfortable
There
this is
are
for me.
very few people in my life that I have seen go so far. Like you've taken your mess and you've brought it into your message. You
Mm.
have this powerful way how you walk through the world now, helping others. You're a coach. Stephanie's a certified life coach, and she's an inspirational speaker. And there's nothing that you're afraid of just doing. Like you want to make a difference, and it's because of what you've gone through that has really put you in this position to help countless people. So I want to try to fast forward a little bit. Tell us a little bit more, like give us a little bit more of a storyline to where you are today. And
Right.
let's talk about what really pulled you through.
Okay. So, you were saying, yeah, my picking up the pieces happened before Mati actually died. Um, so my journey to where I am today, once my son was born and I had hit my rock bottom, and it honestly, it wasn't until I hit that bottom, and like once you're down, the only way you can go is up.
Mm.
I found I didn't even realize my courage and how brave I was and my courage at that time, because I was in such doer mode at that point. I'm like, this isn't okay. I have a choice. I didn't know any of this stuff. I didn't realize about this. It happens to be I have the choice right over here, because it's like the book that's that defines my life. Dr. Edith Eger is like my real-time hero. Esther Hamalka from the Story of Purim, which is coming up, is like my Tanakh, my Torah hero. She's like my idol, like, in that kind of way. And Dr. Edith Eger is like the real time for me.
Yes.
But I was in such despair, and I've experienced that level of despair and hopelessness many times throughout my life. Just how long I stay there has changed, and how I tap into removing myself from that place. I started going to Al-Anon, which is a 12-step program, meetings for the loved ones of addicts. He was not ready to start on his proper recovery and do the things that he needed to do to live a life of, abstinence, sobriety, etc. It did happen at times, but I couldn't wait for him. And honestly, my nature, my personality was like, we're going to do it as a team. Like, you're going on a diet. It's like, let's do it together. We're going to hold each other accountable. And I thought that that's what we're going to do, because we want to live a happy life with the white picket fence. And I thankfully realized that wasn't, even though there were times where I was hopeful that it was going to happen. He'll see my motivation and where I'm coming from, and then he's going to jump on the bandwagon. It didn't happen that way. And I realized that I can't always have someone holding I thought he was going to hold on to my hand, but I secretly needed him to hold mine. And that happens a lot in life, whether it's from your parent, where there's this codependency, this dependency on another person. I didn't realize it. So I started going to Al-Anon, and my life completely changed, because what I gained from there was, and I always went to yeshiva. I went to a great all-girls, school growing up in Brooklyn. I went to a fantastic seminary in Israel, where I was very fortunate to have you come into my life. And so I had the knowledge of God. He existed in my life. I knew that we had to pray. I knew that he said something to Moshe. I knew all these things. I knew that he existed. He was very removed from my life at that point, because I thought that I had to be the one to fix the problems. Because again, I'm that people pleaser. I'm that nurturer. I'm that I needed to be the one. I was one in control. I was one asking for his wallet at the end of every single day, until I went to Al-Anon and realized that's really not a healthy behavior. And I like I said, I got that introduction to what God really is in my life, that spiritual connection to a power greater than myself. And it started to put things into perspective for me. Just that word, and I was telling this to somebody who I learned with, the power greater than myself. She doesn't like using the word higher power. Something that's very removed and cold in that using that language. I said, I don't use that. I like to use the power greater than myself, because it humbles me, because I don't need to be the one in control. I don't need to I don't have the power to do everything. I don't have this. I don't have the ability to make miracles happen. And And the only way I can make miracles happen is when I see that God is the one who's actually performing them for me.
Stephanie,
And
can I jump in here? I'm thinking that maybe some of our listeners are hearing you speak about the 12-step program, maybe not knowing the power of it. I have been in many conversations where people would put down the program. Like, seriously, I'm like, are you for real? Like, it works. It's amazing. And it's so
yeah,
in line with Judaism.
100%.
Could you talk to that for a minute? What is it? They talk a lot about higher power in the program.
Right. Right.
It's so I feel that if someone learns about this program, it could make you so much more connected to
I feel that everyone should go through the 12 steps, honestly. Like it is the guide for life. You talk about powerlessness. You talk there's talk of, came to believe that a power greater than myself, like I said, I don't use the word higher power, and in the 12 steps it's a power greater than myself, because again, it humbles you. You get humbled by it, and when you have humility, you have perspective, you realize that there is a power greater than yourself.
Right.
And then ultimately, when you give up let go and let God, you give up that control, you relinquish that control. That's where you can find joy, and you can find joy even through the hardships and the challenges. And there's a process to it. So the first 3 steps is basically, I can't, God can, I'll let him,
Beautiful.
because he runs the show. He brought me into this world for me. That's what I've gained out of it. He brought me into this world. He'll get me through this world. That's when I experience obstacles, and when I talk with my clients, we talk a lot. She's like, okay, I'm gonna get over it. I'm gonna get over this obstacle. You don't want to just get over the obstacle. You want to get through it.
Yeah.
You want to see what's inside and on the sidelines of the wall. You want to see what you're working yourself through, because it's not just overcoming the obstacle. It's building yourself up. You're only going to get stronger as you mind your way through the rock and through the obstacle, through the hard place that you're in.
Do you remember that song as children? I'm going on a bear hunt,
Yes.
Go over it, can't go under it, gotta go through it. It's really that.
I love children's books, by the way. I reread them now, and I've given many children's books to adults who really could benefit from it. I think I can. And a little engine that could, like there's
powerful muscles.
Yes.
I was recently, just a couple weeks ago, I was with a woman who was birthing a child. I was her doula. It was such an amazing experience. Yeah, mazel tov.
And fly you in, God willing, next time I'm pregnant.
Amen. Amen. And I just, every time, and it's so hard as someone that's an empath, like we feel for people. So every time she was in pain, I wanted to take away her pain. But I kept going to say, okay, you have to get through the contraction. Like you're almost, okay, we're almost there. I'm timing it, I'm cheerleading, right? We have to get through each one, but each contraction brings you closer and closer to holding your baby. Like there's no way around it. Like we want the contractions. It's a good thing, right? As painful as it is, and as, we want to take away the pain, but it's inevitable, right? We have to get through it to get to the other side, which is where we want to go. And just thinking back to this whole Corona period, great story that I heard months ago in the beginning of Corona. I heard this by, I think it was Rabbi Nissel who wrote it as a Facebook post. He said he experienced a man opening his door, coming out of his car door and hitting another car. And these 2 men kind of had this experience where one car got hit with the other. It was totally a mistake. So the guy comes out of his car and he says, OFG. And he's like, excuse me? Like, we know OMG, like, oh my gosh, like we know all the, all those short forms, like if you have teens, LOL, but he had never heard OFG. And he said, what's that? And he said, opportunity for growth. And I just love that because,
only from God.
Oh, love it. Right? Just to have these quick, pivot shift of perspective. Like, what are we going to do? You want to fight it out? or should we get through this?
I love what you just like brought up about opportunities, like, opportunities from God. And I shared with you, I think, when we spoke before on the phone, um, my father-in-law had shared, about, midlife crisis, or, when you're I'm in crisis mode, I'm in this mode. And, a person, well, like a man gets over the age of 50 and gets themselves like a little tiny car or whatever it is. And it's like, oh, they're going through a midlife crisis. It's an opportunity. It's
Mm,
not you can choose to see it as crisis mode, but then you're just blinding yourself, and you're just, it's making it harder for you to to lower that volume to eventually, you can't stay in crisis mode forever. You eventually have to do something. Whether you choose to do nothing or choose to do something, you're making a choice.
mm,
So you could choose to see it as an opportunity for, let's say a person who's going through a midlife crisis. I feel like I've already experienced 4 midlife crises at this point. I'm 30, I'm 31 years old, but in comparison, in dog years, it's just a whole different ball game for me. Age is just a number, like I always say. If you're looking at it as a crisis mode or opportunity mode, if it's going to get you into better shape and get you into do whatever it is that you want to do, so be it.
mm.
Seize that moment, take that opportunity and follow through with it. And so I had many of those opportunities where I stayed in crisis mode for long periods of time. Like I said, now it might take a couple of minutes of crisis mode, but opportunity mode where like I have to just, to just gather myself
Mm.
and to kind of just like snap back into it, OMG, OFG, is it opportunity for growth? Is it only from God? Everything's for me. I could see that everything at this point in my life is only from God,
Wow.
just to see. And like, I'm very big on expressing gratitude, because when you express the gratitude, you see where the source of it's from. All the good in your life, when you take a step back and you can see where the source is from, and you can think that source, all that source is going to do is give you more and give you more and give you more. It's this like hamster wheel. It's just going to keep going and going. So why stop?
Right.
When you make a bracha, it just, now I'm back into, we didn't even get here yet, but I recently had the blessings in my life of getting remarried to a phenomenal person. And I had to wait. I wasn't ready yet. And neither was he. And, at the end of it, like while we were dating, I had told him, like, I've been praying for you my whole life.
Mm.
And especially once my husband passed away, and I was back into that mindset of dating and remarriage. I've been praying for him, not knowing who that was. And for him, he was like, we're perfect for each other. He's like, because I've been praying for you, not knowing who you were. And we still had to go. And when we talk about like our dating experiences and what we had to go through to get to this point, for me, it was 6 years past my husband's death, and raising David like all this time by myself, and not by myself. I had an army of support, and but I was as that main man in his life. I'm I'm back in I'm back in I'm back in I'm back in embracing, the 3 mitzvot, the 3 commandments that women have: Chana, Chala, Nida, and Hatar Mishpacha, and Hadlakat Nero. And I was reading this beautiful book on Chala, and they were talking about the blessings within it. And the word bracha is, we know as a Baruch Atah Hashem, blessed are you, God. Bracha is from the same word of brecha, as this reservoir. It's just this constant flow. And now, once I read that, when I make a blessing on anything that I'm making it on, you are the constant flow in my life. But I choose to have that kavana. I choose to have that what's the word I'm looking for?
Like the presence, like it's
The
just
connection, the focus on, if I'm making the whole bracha, but that blessing on the water. But all I'm thinking about at times, depending on where I am in my life, I want to just focus. My kavana is only on the word bracha, because I want to see God as this opportunity of this ever flowing source of bracha.
Wow.
So like my prayers, my tefillah is so different today than what I was accustomed to being raised as saying. It's not necessarily from a prayer book. I have things that I pick and choose today, and I feel that my relationship with God, my spiritual relationship with God is like, I don't need you at this point in your life, Stephanie. I don't necessarily need you to say everything from cover to cover from a prayer book every day. It's not where I want you to be right now in your life. Right now, I want you to spend 3 seconds on the word baruch, and when you're
Meditate.
making a bracha,
Yeah.
like that's where you are right now, Steph. This is where I want you to be right now. And not only that, I want you to remind to other people in the world, that the word baruch and the word brecha, the word blessed and the word reservoir, are from the same root. And you were saying, I forgot what you said earlier to get us into this topic. I don't know, because we always go full circle. But I heard a beautiful point the other day. You can't just go and fix the fruit. You see, like, Tu B'Shvat, it was something that I heard on Tu B'Shvat that just passed. And you have this tree, and the fruit aren't growing. The fruit are maybe rotting like too quickly, whatever it is. You can't just fix the fruit. You have to go to the roots of the tree. You have to dig deep and fix the roots and water it and nourish it, or and replant that. Maybe you need to uproot them and put them in a different soil, whatever it is. And then that changes the whole, what comes out of it, what can flow through it.
Right.
So
I want to take a step back for a second, if that's okay. We spoke about how your late husband brought you into the 12-step program, and how
right.
you ended up doing it for yourself. Like, he wasn't even always on board, and you were like,
Right.
I have a
You
lot.
didn't need to be on board. It was for
Right.
me. I learned that.
And then tell us a little bit how you found your own 12-step program with eating disorders, and how that, I'm sure so many people that are listening would benefit from a program like this. Tell us about walking into that for the first time, and how that
Right.
opened another whole door and has enhanced your life.
Right. So like you said, I started in Al-Anon, and like I share in the mic drop, just a little background on that one. It was my 25th birthday, which happened, I did not know at the time, but Mati was going to be passing away about 6 weeks later, but I didn't know that. And I've always struggled with my weight, my entire life, my insecurities with my body, my self-worth, as I valued myself based on my body. My worth was dependent on how I looked. And it's very common for a teenager. It's very common for it's for humans to get consumed by that. And I had gone through stages in my life from extremes. Like, one extreme was the restricting, was the binging, the purging. And the binging, not just on food, it was on exercise. It was on a lot of unhealthy behaviors, where, again, I thought I could have this control over my body, and I can have this control over my weight loss. Like the restricting, serious closet eating. I would go the entire day without eating a thing, just drinking gallons and gallons of water, and then come home at night after work and after working out and after all these things, and just shove as much food into my body. And it was, I don't know, I'll tell you, the first time I purged, I felt so in control. I got that high, but the crash was, I was so embarrassed of myself, of knowing the consequences of it. It's not like I was blinded by it. I saw it around me. I saw people who were struggling with an eating disorder around me. But then I felt so embarrassed, but then all of a sudden I started looking at them, that they were my idols. Like, look at the point that where they got to. And I was just so focused on that. And again, I was so afraid to look inwards that I was so busy looking outwards. And all I saw was just the reflection in the mirror. And I couldn't see past that. I couldn't even see inwards of like of what was here and what was here. It just didn't exist anymore. It was so muffled at that point. Um, and then as I, at once I became aware of Mati's addiction, I slowly transitioned into the opposite extreme where I needed to I binge and purge to muffle the sounds of what was going going on around me and the stress that I was feeling. And here all of a sudden I'm starting to turn to food to do the exact same thing, and I'm shoving and I'm shoving and I'm shoving, and it was this endless bottomless pit. It just wouldn't. I was consuming anything and everything in sight. And I did that for a while, and then I went on every crazy the diet that existed. I did the bollies behind the ear. I did everything. If they said I needed to do this, I did that. I did every diet that existed out there. And I was so unsatisfied with myself. The dissatisfaction was just so painful. And again, this shame of like, I'm so incapable of losing weight. I didn't feel good about myself. I felt empowered in my relationship with myself and Mati and his addiction, but I felt this total disconnect between Stephanie and herself. It was it I just this the it just I still didn't find myself yet. And it was my birthday. It was May 29th. And I woke up that day, and I always hated celebrating my birthday once I had gotten married, because it always just didn't have a good vibe. It didn't sit well. Birthdays wasn't really like a big thing in my house growing up as much as I wanted it to be. It just like, I didn't get it. So it's just like, I'm never going to get that attention. So I'm just not even going to try for it. And I woke up that morning and I took my son to school, and I came back and I went back into bed, which is my usual routine. And I just tossed and turned and just felt like, okay, it's another year. Like whatever, it wasn't anything.
Was that like your rock bottom?
This was another rock bottom for me, and I don't know where that God moment came in to my mind. I don't know where it came from, but I took out my phone and I typed in Overeaters Anonymous meetings, and I typed in my zip code, and there was a meeting that was starting in 30 minutes from where I lived in Florida. And I hopped in my car. I didn't tell Mati where I was going. He was there in the room. I just like jumped out of bed. I put on like some sort of schmaltzy outfit, and I just ran out of the house, and I made it to the meeting. And when it got up to me, and like, hi, like there's every room has their own format, whatever. And in that one, everyone's like, hi, I'm this, and I'm a compulsive eater, whatever it is. And I just got there and I said, hi, I'm Stephanie. Today's my birthday, and I need to do this for myself. I need to change something about me. This is my birthday. No one else is responsible to make me happy, to find this joy in my life, to find this what's the word I'm looking for? Approval. I don't need anyone else's approval in anything in my life. I don't need any of this stuff. And I just sat there and I listened. I didn't share anything more than that. I just sat there and I listened. And then I went back and I continued. And I started my journey in OA at that point. And fast forward 6 weeks later or so, and Mati passes away, and I uproot myself to New York for the summer, because he died July 4th, and I uproot myself for the whole summer. And during Shiva, I continued to check in and I call in, and I stayed in, like I had, people in the meeting who kept me on speakerphone just so that I could participate. I allotted myself time during Shiva in order to do that.
Wow.
Because that was more of a priority to me in my life. And the benefit of that was that it was the first time I actually felt, then in the moment, I felt the grief. I felt the pain that, yes, waves of grief come up constantly in our life at different moments. But in that time, in that Shiva, while sitting there, I was able to be present enough, and I wasn't, I wasn't numbing with food. I wasn't numbing the absence,
Grief.
I wasn't numbing it by food or anything else. I was able to really tap in and maintain that and devote myself to that because I deserved it.
Mm.
And my journey, throughout OA has always been there. There were times where I saw, and I would always say this to Mati, abstinence does not mean sobriety. Just stopping whatever it is that you're doing does not mean that you're living a sober life. Living a sober life is living life, not just putting it away and it's there, because it's still going to be that stumbling block for you if it's going to be right and center in your face. Tackle again. You can't just, deal with the fruit. You have to get to the root of it. And I saw that in my own life, because there were times where I became complacent and I thought I had it. And food addiction is the mind plays so many tricks on us. And I lived it, and I've been living it, because I've had moments where I've
heard people say things like, once an addict, always an addict. How do you feel about that? Is this, now that you're out of the woods, you're a healthy individual, do you still consider yourself a food addict? Do you still have to be really careful? Do you put fences around that?
Yes. For me, yes.
Okay.
Because I will forever have this struggle in my life. It in a split second, my mind can play so many tricks on me. It's terrifying, because I've lived it. Like I share, this as my life has been changing and progressing, and evolving, all of those other things need to change and progress and evolve along with me. And if I don't take that along with me, I will end up falling backwards. And I did have a slip. I did have a quick relapse. And luckily at this point in my life today, I know what I need to do to really pick myself up. My self-awareness that didn't exist back then is full on throttle there. And today in my life, this program requires a lot of honesty. And you could, it's not just being honest with, your sponsor or whoever it is, and the people who are in program with you. You have to be honest with yourself. Yeah. And it took a lot of that. And I thank God I have people in my life that are in program that I have meetings, and I don't know. So again, we have to take the time to really think technology. It's good and bad. It's all about how you choose to use it. But the fact that there are meetings on phone lines and, interviews like this, there's so many good things that you could utilize it for. The fact that I've always had the opportunity to tap into a meeting when I need it is a brecha. It's a bracha for me. That's really what it is, because it grounds me back to, and it humbles me of I really don't have this alone. I can't just, think that I can just float through life. You don't want to float through life. And I thought there are times where my mind convinces me that I can.
Right.
And
I'm hearing that awareness is the key. And I think the opposite of being so mindful and aware of what's going on inside of you, probably the opposite, it might be denial, right? Because when you're in denial, you can't do the work. You can't move forward. And I look at the word denial, it could be an acronym for don't even know I am lying, right? It's just like,
I think I told you that one.
Yourself, right? Isn't that a good one? You don't even
share that one with you. Yeah.
And we've all been there. We go into these denial modes. Everything is good. Everything is good. I got this. But you can't lie to yourself without that self-awareness of
you can try. You can try. It won't last.
Right. So I want you to share, you shared such a beautiful Dvar Torah with me when we spoke on the phone. It was about taking small steps. And I think that is a beautiful way to end this, because how did you get from where you were to today, and there's so much there. We could fill hours of recordings
Oh
because
my gosh,
every
we
step
really
of the
can.
journey, I know. And I really encourage our listeners to look you up, to follow you, to find you. You have so much wisdom and light about you, Stephanie. It's just, you are a brecha. You are this wellspring, this beautiful pool of knowledge. So tell us about, share maybe this Devar Torah, maybe if you could share it in a nutshell.
Sure. Yeah. So like I shared with you, I was reading Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson's Devar Torah on this past week's Parsha of Yitro. And just to summarize it, God commanded the Levium to not go up the mountain and to stay and to stay back, stay at the foot of the mountain, but not go up the mountain. And explaining because of their wardrobe, it's what they wear, it would expose them if they went up the mountain, because you have to take big strides up. And
I guess they were wearing robes.
They wear robes, and when it came, I don't know if like the time of the midbar, if that's what they're in the desert, that's what they're wearing, but their job, it was everything in the Torah is so relevant to our life. It's not this outdated, book, with a great author. That's not what the Torah is. It's really a map and a guide and a tool for our life, or literally it's our manual for life. And basically what Rabbi Y.Y. Jacobson was explaining was that commandment followed through into the Mishkan, into the tabernacle in the desert, and then eventually into when they were doing their work in the Beit HaMikdash. Years later. And again, the people who lived in the desert, who went through the desert, were not the same people who were in, the Beit HaMikdash. So like generations had passed at that point. And basically, he was explaining that in the Mishkan, in the Beit HaMikdash, there were ramps. When the Levium had to do their avoda, their job in the Beit HaMikdash, they went up on ramps. And basically what the message was that if you try to jump the steps and you try to take these when you go up a step versus going up a ramp, your steps going up, your stride going up the steps are far greater, and you have to open yourself up a lot more. Your legs need to be open more. And when you go up a ramp, you're taking smaller strides up. And that is life. That is life. If you try to take these big steps and expose yourself more, you are going to be, if you try to, there's this idea of fake it till you make it, and just like be the person you want to be, and then eventually everything will come out. I could see how that makes sense, but it doesn't always. And there's room to be exposed. And then when you're exposed and you find out who you really are and where you are in that moment, you're not being true to yourself, you could crash again. It's not the same as when you're going up that ramp and you're taking those small steps up, you're shuffling up the steps.
And I'm also when there's actual steps, we might feel like all energized one day, we might skip steps.
Yeah, all of a sudden I did lunges and I can do it. Yeah.
But that doesn't always serve us well either. Like we need to be in it. We need to.
I personally am a klutz, so I'm gonna end up falling. So I know I need the ramp,
Wow.
So that's I read it and I was just like, and again, this is just from Matan Torah, just from when God gave us the Torah, and that message just went on from the next. Again, Torah is so relevant to our life, and if we just look at it as this opportunity, as a manual, then you could see more of God, in your day-to-day life. It's not this, God is not this removed, higher power. He's a power greater than ourselves, but that means he's part of us still.
Preaching to the choir, sister. 100%. Wow. The years that you were waiting for your Besheret to come. And he is such a lucky, blessed guy. Wow. I still can't wait to meet him one day soon. But he is a gift. And I think of those years, those lonely, long years of waiting. you needed to do all this work in the meantime. You needed to be shuffling up life, shuffling up that mountain. There, you needed that time to become who you are today. And I just see that as a beautiful ray of hope to leave all of us today. Like,
I may have been alone,
mm,
Eve, but I was never lonely.
interesting.
You
Oh,
know,
you had Hashem.
that's truth. I did. I really did. Like I said, I had my son. I have the people that God has put into my life at different stages in my life. And even throughout, whether it was from Mati, from you 13 years ago, Mati, at that, whatever point it was, my marriage with him. And then the friendships that, that have come into my life and have made its way through,
Right.
the ones that are sticking, the ones that are sticking there, they have an enormous amount that I get for, like you were talking about having teachers, you can learn from anyone and anything. Like I
That's
said,
so
David is my
beautiful.
biggest teacher in life.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Thank
Well,
you.
I think we're going to have to end. Our time is coming to a close, but I want to, I know that you and we connect through many things, Stephanie, but one of them is the power of the Jewish woman. And we get excited when we hear the stories of the Torah about Miriam and all the prophetesses and all the imahot, the matriarchs and all the women coming down all the way to Dr. Edith Eger, right? We're big fans of all these Jewish women that have paved the way for us. And I want to
Exactly.
end with this really powerful teaching. And for the ladies that are listening that have learned with me many, many times before, they've heard this a dozen times, but I don't know if you've ever heard it. It's something that I learned a couple years ago. It was a lesson. It was spoken by the Arizal, the holy Kabbalist from the 1600s, who said that it's going to be the women in the pre-messianic times, like right now, the times that we're in, we are going to be the same souls, the reincarnated souls of the women from Mitzrayim. So we just think back. I know,
Chills.
chills, because when I learned it, and it was nice to read it in print in the source, but there was a moment in time where I found myself sitting around, and I'll go back to 1 year ago when you came to Portland, and we were sitting in a large group of women. And do you remember we were sharing? It was
Saturday night.
Saturday night. We had a Malava Malka, and Stephanie led a conversation about self-esteem and eating issues, and it was such a powerful group of women coming together, everyone sharing their own struggles, their own inadequacies, their fears, the way they were raised. It was almost
It
as
was
if
so honest and vulnerable. It was so beautiful.
incredibly powerful, like each one with their own struggles, with their marriages that they're holding together by a thread, with their kids that have disabilities or mental health issues or struggles. Like each person, like I know these women, and I'm thinking, like, she's struggling with finances, she's struggling with things that no one would ever know. Like women from all different backgrounds in a circle coming together, sharing their heart. And that's when it hit me. We are them. The women that had the hardest generation, that Miriam, who was born, her name even reflects the time, Miriam, bitter. She was born into the darkest, bitterest time in our history.
My eyes are watering up, Eve, just
It's
knowing that now.
Right? We are them, they are us. The Arizal tells us we're their souls. And what gives me hope, and to end with this, is one day soon, it's going to be us again that are going to move things forward and grab hands. Stephanie, you and I, we're going to grab our tambourines. We're going to be walking through, bringing the whole nation, our children that we've held together, our families that we've held together in the most challenging times. Our generation is very different. We're not enslaved in the way that we were in Egypt, but this generation is so challenging in so many other ways. And we are those Nashim Tzidkaniot, those powerful, righteous women that once again are going to move our nation forward to better times.
Wow.
So I'm giving you
I
such a
love that.
hug.
Amen.
Such a hug.
Amen.
Thank you for being such a light, such a brave soldier in this world, and such
Thank you, Eve. Thank you for this platform. It's so phenomenal. I'm
Oh,
so lucky.
we're grateful to you, Stephanie. Keep shining. Thank you everyone for joining us. And oh, Stephanie, before we go, tell us how we could find you if women want to. I'm going to share in the notes, but why don't you just tell us over here
Yeah.
if someone wants to look you up?
You could find me on social media, mostly on Instagram. My handle is at Stephanie Pollak, Pollak. I'm sure when this will be on Facebook, it's Stephanie Pollak also. And if you would like to email me, it's stephaniepollakcoaching@gmail.com. And but you'll put all that information in there.
And Stephanie, what's your specialty as a coach? Do you mainly work with women?
But yeah, women, preferably, over the age of 21. I don't really work with teens so much, not so much young adults. And the goal is really just to find their purpose, their help them overcome the challenges, help them realize that they're not alone along the way, and learn the tools. Like really, every one of my clients come with a beautiful toolbox of tools that they end up learning how to open that up and just know how to get the right one out and to just motivate and go through life, work their way through life.
Wow, that's such a gift. That's a gift. Every single person is looking for those tools and looking for their purpose. So that is so spot on.
I'm very lucky that I get to be in this field, honestly.
Incredible. Okay,
I
well,
can take my learnings and my experiences and really give it over. And I'm very fortunate.
that's amazing. Thank you so, so much. Sending you all a big love, big hug. Have a wonderful day. Bye, everyone.
Bye.